We need to have just and sustainable communities because they're the only communities worth living in. They are the only communities with a real future. We need to help the natural world recover because we need it to survive, and even more because the creatures of that world are our kin.
I come from the state of Kerala, which is the southernmost part of India, where there's a huge agitation, quite successful one, against Coca-Cola, because they are, obviously they have the money to dig the deepest bore wells, and they are pumping out the water, and all the farmers nearby, their farms are drying up because Coca-Cola is managing to pump out all the water.
The resistance movements must work in tandem. The above ground and below ground, the militants and the nonviolent, the frontline activists and the cultural workers. We need it all, and we need courage. The word courage comes from the same root as coeur, the French word for heart. We need all the courage of which the human heart is capable, forged into both weapon and shield to defend what is left of this planet. And the lifeblood of courage is, of course, love.
And the fact is, more and more imminent harm is happening in places where it hasn't happened before, and that's starting to radicalize populations that we wouldn't have thought would become radicalized prior to this. Our opponents helped this along. So in Pennsylvania, after we crossed 50 municipalities, so 50 municipalities passing these kinds of ordinances which went beyond just stopping an imminent harm, but actually about deconstructing the system that enabled the corporation to do what it did in the first place, that the Pennsylvania legislature stepped in. And some would say that when the Pennsylvania legislature steps in, they would step in on the side of the communities instead of the corporations. Instead, the Pennsylvania legislature passed a law which now authorizes the Attorney General of the state to sue the municipalities to overturn the laws that have been passed to keep the corporations out of those communities. So whereas once you were facing off against a Monsanto rep who was coming into the community saying, repeal that ordinance or we're going to sue you, now the Attorney General of the state comes into your community and says to you, if you don't repeal the ordinance that you've adopted to stop factory farms or whatever else from coming in, we're going to sue you, not as the corporation, but as the state, using your taxpayer monies.
The dominant culture will not change because it beholds the beautiful nonviolent values that we hold in our hearts, and it will not change because it sees our life-affirming free-range compost piles. There are no exceptions. This doesn't work. We're going to have to give this one up. Now, the farthest extreme of individualism is where personal lifestyle becomes personal purity, and identity itself is declared some kind of political act. And this is where subcultures start to feel like cults. But any strategy based on individual change is doomed to fail because social subordination is not an individual condition. It's a class condition, it's a group condition, and it will only change by group effort.
It seemed like a viable ratio of liberals to radicals to me. I figured that the radicals could function as one trend within a large, diverse range. The problem was we hadn't organized going into it. We didn't know each other very well, and we didn't have a plan. So what ended up happening was that the radical approaches were ignored in favor of responses that the majority believed were open to them, to protest at a congressperson's office, to help a liberal commissioner get elected, to invite institutional environmental groups for yet another protest on the sidewalk with signs reading "Clean Energy Now," and to present public talks by green businesses.
This is the kind of message I think that we hear a lot in indigenous communities in response to especially the damage, the destruction to our homelands. And that's that the spiritual path, the righteous path, is that we pray, we send good wishes, we unite in good thoughts, and that in doing so, it will affect change. As a Dakota person, I value prayer, and I value the power of prayer, but I also know that prayer alone is not going to stop the destruction.
I keep saying that the most successful secessionist movement in India has been the secession of the middle and upper classes into outer space, where they sort of look down at the people and they say, what's our bauxite doing in their mountains, and what's our water doing in their rivers, and how can we get it out?